Hello everyone, this is Frederick Dortmund from coherentlifecoaching.com, and today I wanted to talk about taking responsibility. Now, taking full responsibility for your own life is absolutely essential if you want to improve your own life. If you reject the full responsibility for your own life, you will be forever a victim, and your life will be fundamentally defined by your peers, your friends, your family, society, and the culture in general. Because all the bad things that happen or that you fundamentally make the choice to do are always and forever going to be the fault of others, of whatever it is. And so taking full responsibility is essential. And of course it's easy to take responsibility for the good things that may happen, that you may do in your own life, but of course it's a challenge to accept responsibility for bad decisions, for mistakes that you might make. And so why is it that some people, take more responsibility for their lives than others, and especially if there is no real introspection when it comes to that? Why are some people naturally more keen to take responsibility? Well, I think a primary factor in regards to that is what our parents show us, demonstrate us. Are our parents really taking full responsibility for their own lives? And that's because we, as children, we tend to emulate our parents because they are the most immediate and convincing proof that whatever they have done has been biologically successful in terms of procreation, right? If we weren't biologically programmed to procreate, if that wasn't a priority of ours, then we wouldn't exist, right? Because what are we but the culmination of like millions and millions of instances of successful procreation. And so that's absolutely essential. So given the certain circumstances, the culture, the society, the kind of environment that our parents have grown up in, whatever they have done has proven successful, right? So if that means that they haven't taken full responsibility, then whatever works, right? So we tend to mirror ourselves after our parents. It doesn't mean that we can't change, we can't divert from that, but it's important to keep that in mind. So I'll give you an example from my own history. So when I was about, I think, 5 years old, I was alone at home with my mother, and we were getting prepared for kindergarten. And it was cold outside, it was winter, so certainly needed the jacket, but for some reason I didn't want to put on the jacket that my mother handed me, for some reason. And so I'd really rejected the jacket, right? And my mother was like, "Oh, but it's cold outside, you have to wear the jacket." And she tried and tried again, putting on the jacket, and I started crying. I just didn't want to put on the jacket. And yeah, and after a couple of minutes, I was just standing there crying my eyes out, and my mother just standing there looking at me, and she didn't know in that moment what to do. I find a very tragic instance of how my mother didn't recognize how my preferences, and didn't respect my preferences in the moment. For whatever reason, I didn't want to put on the jacket, it doesn't really matter. And so about 3 years ago, I think, I Skyped with my mother. It must have been one of the last times I Skyped with her, and I haven't talked with her since, in person or via Skype. And I talked with her about it. I think she could remember that memory. And I was like, why did you try so hard to put the jacket on me, right? Why didn't you respect my preference in the moment? And I said, like, you could have just taken the jacket with you. We were probably, walking to the car or walking to the bus stop or something. So it was pretty cold outside, so I certainly would have wanted the jacket sooner or later. You could have just brought it with you and given it to me once I needed it, right? It's not like I freeze to death a minute in without a jacket outside. It's ridiculous. And she was like, yeah, she was saying, I didn't know that. I didn't see that opportunity in the moment. I didn't think about that, right? And I was like, okay, but you do see now that we talk about it, now that I give a little bit of context to that, you see that you made a mistake. Like you could have done differently. And she was like, no, I couldn't in that moment. She said, like, I just didn't know. I didn't know any better. And so that's completely fascinating. So then I made the analogy, right? An analogy that I think makes it pretty clear. I said, like, okay, you say you couldn't think of a different way in that moment to handle the situation, but let's say you were a mother and you had no arms for some reason. You had no arms, and I, as a son, as the son of hers, I would have liked a hug from her. Like, that's the one thing I really wanted from her. And so that's something that you just could not provide to me. You can't hug me physically. It's impossible because you have no arms, right? I mean, it's impossible, right? Okay. So that's a con, right? And what did she say? Well, she didn't accept it. She didn't see the delineation. She didn't see how these cases were different. In one case, you're physically incapable. It's an impossibility to fulfill the need that the child wants. In the other task, it is a matter of trying different ways, finding ways to better handle situations, reading a book, asking a friend, thinking about it, and talking to me, the child, whatever. You know, what is it that I could do better? What do you really want from me? And so that's a matter of free choice. In the one instance, in the other, in the analogy, it's a matter of possibility, right? So that's an example, I think a very typical example of how mothers very often, I mean fathers do this as well, but I think it's very, it's more common among mothers, how my mother didn't take full responsibility for her parenting, right? The right thing to say in that moment, I mean the mature thing to say, taking full responsibility would be to, I recognize now that we talk about it, I remember the situation, and I now see what you were so upset about. Like, I didn't respect your preferences in the moment. It doesn't really matter why you didn't want to, put on the jacket in the moment. It doesn't really matter. I could have just taken the jacket with me, and and I don't remember that she even asked me really why I didn't want to put on the jacket. Right? There was no negotiation, and she was just so stubborn, right? And it's so funny that that my mother insists on me putting on the jacket, and I insist on not putting on the jacket, but she puts her preferences, her needs, her idea of what I need above mine, right? In a case where it's really not important at all. So the mature thing would have been for her to say, I made a mistake in that. Yeah, I was ignoring your preferences to the point where you were crying your eyes out and you were very helpless, and I was standing there alone in the hallway and nobody else was home. I felt very alone in that moment, right? As I'm sure you can understand. So my mother didn't take full responsibility for that, and I recognize that, and I respect her choice in not taking full responsibility, because it is a choice to not take full responsibility, right? People who reject taking responsibility for those, grave mistakes, more or less grave mistakes, they make a choice in that, right? They make the choice to pretend they don't have a choice, right? She could have negotiated, she could have asked friends, got into therapy, learned, about negotiation with children in whatever way. And fundamentally, it's just a little bit of more empathy that she needed in order to understand why I was so upset, right? I wasn't fundamentally upset about that she wanted to put on the jacket on me. I was upset that she didn't respect my preference in the moment, and she continued to disrespect it by trying again and again and not negotiating, not respecting me fundamentally as a person. Now, if we recognize the degree to which our parents are taking full responsibility for their mistakes and their, their lives, their choices, especially in regards to parenting, then we can move on from that and either accept full responsibility for our own lives or not, right? But it's important to have the conversation with your parents, to talk about difficult things, and especially in regards to parenting during your childhood, in order to find out, get the self-knowledge about what you have actually been trained for years and years and years, right? This is the whole environment that you were surrounded by. And if your parents don't take full responsibility, it's very unlikely that your relatives do any different. So they have been the same kind of influence. And it is important to get the self-knowledge so that you can recognize what you're working with. If you drive drunk, right, you sip a couple beers before you hop into the car, you don't steer quite straight, right, and the police pulls you over and it says, what are you doing, right? Have you drunk anything? And you say, yeah, I've drunk a couple beers, right, but I'm driving the best that I can with the knowledge that I have, right? I'm doing my best. What is the police going to say, right? What is the police going to say? It's not acceptable in the adult world to not take full responsibility for the choices that you have made, right? And you made the choice to drink those beers, and in the same way, parents made the choice to do certain things that might have ended up with a lot of despair in the child. And they haven't bothered to pick up another book, to get into therapy, to get some kind of consultation, to ask good friends or whatever. They haven't made the choice to change direction, right? And that's not the only mistake they have made, right? The second mistake, and what's so disturbing, is when you talk about it with your parents, and then they don't accept that they could have made different choices. Then they don't see that they could have made anything different, right? They pretend that it's like a computer program. They do that, and there's no way to break out of it because they're just programmed a certain way. But of course, what they don't recognize is that they have made certain choices. They have or haven't talked to their friends about specific things, and they do it all the time. It's a ridiculous thing for parents to pretend that they didn't have a choice to do a little bit different, right? So I hope this has been illuminating, and please let me know if there are any more questions regarding this topic. But I thank you for watching. This is Frederick Dortmund from coherentlifecoaching.com. If you need me to help you solve problems in your own life, then please just head over to coherentlifecoaching.com or shoot me an email at fred@coherentlifecoaching.com. See ya.